On his wedding night, the man wanted to strangle his bride. He had already lived through this 108 times. Each time, he was betrayed by the woman. Despite this, he still couldn't bring himself to kill her. All he wanted to know was whether she had ever truly loved him. However, the woman remained silent in the face of his questioning, only repeatedly urging him to give up Huang Quan. But as the true Dragon Emperor, how could he allow matters of life and death to be controlled by others? Even when they were at the point of drawing swords against each other, the man still couldn't bear to hurt his beloved concubine. In the end, he always died in her arms. When he opened his eyes again, he would return to his wedding night, trapped in an inescapable loop. The man understood. Although the woman before him was his wife, her heart belonged to another. She only wanted his life. If he didn't strike first, she would take the golden hairpin from her hair and plunge it into his chest at any moment. Yet even so, he still yearned, time and time again, for her to truly fall in love with him. As he pondered, the woman suddenly opened her eyes. He slowly lowered his outstretched hand, his eyes showing concern that you're awake. Seeing you suddenly faint, I almost called the imperial physician. But the woman's mind was in turmoil. She had actually transmigrated into the world of the game. Hua Shui was a veteran Otome game enthusiast, currently addicted to a strategy game called Royal Destiny. As the devastatingly beautiful female protagonist, she needed to successfully capture the hearts of several male characters in the game. However, no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't change the tragic fate of the Emperor Qianti. In order to successfully alter his destiny, she had already attempted to play through the game 108 times, but each time ended in failure. Her persistence finally moved the game system, which decided to send her into the game world to personally save Qianti. However, once a player enters the game, they become bound to the fate of their character irreversibly. The game can only be completed by clearing all levels. To put it simply, if the game character dies, Hua Shui will die too. As the girl recovered from her shock, she felt a suffocating sensation around her neck. When she opened her eyes again, she saw Qianti looking at her with concern. Seeing Hua Shui awake, the man leaned closer to her. So, the next part of the plot is the assassination attempt, right? In the original plot, this assassination attempt became a thorn in Qianti's heart, so she couldn't do that. Her purpose in transmigrating into the game wasn't to repeat the predetermined plot, but to change Qianti's perpetually tragic fate. So she quickly got up and flipped the man onto his back, pinning him beneath her. Qianti was bewildered by the sudden change in the plot. The girl broke the usual pattern with her actions. She tore at his clothes, ripping them open. When she looked up at Qianti again, her eyes sparkled with excitement. "You're even more handsome than I imagined. Let's have a deep, soulful exchange." This man, whom she had fantasized about for so long, could now finally be truly felt. She approached him with a desirous posture, acting like a seasoned veteran. "Your Majesty, a moment of spring night is worth 1,000 gold pieces. Let's get down to business." On her wedding night, the woman attempted to force herself on the man. This was because she was a veteran Otome game player who had transmigrated into the game. She did this to change the tragic ending of the male supporting character. However, she didn't realize that the supporting character, Qianti, had already awakened his consciousness, and he had experienced 108 loops. In each loop, he was betrayed by his beloved concubine. He knew exactly what the woman was about to do, but the situation before him had changed. The woman's forced intimacy hadn't happened. Next, she should have taken the golden hairpin and stabbed him in the chest. Faced with the woman's excessive intimacy, he chose to ignore it. He stood up abruptly and pushed her away. "You clearly want to kill me. What are you playing at now?" Seeing her cooked duck suddenly fly away, Hua Shui was puzzled. Qianti explained, "I know you're playing hard to get. It's all right, I'll wait for you. Wait until you forget him. Wait until there's only me in your heart." Hua Shui felt like crying with gratitude. Her little Qianti was so gentle and understanding. The 108 betrayals the man had experienced were deeply ingrained in his memory. So whether Hua Shui was sincere or not, he didn't want to give her another chance. After Qianti left, Hua Shui began to sort through the game's plot. In the game, Hua Shui and the general were childhood sweethearts, but were separated by Qianti. Helpless, Hua Shui pretended to be devoted to Qianti, but in reality, she was working with the general to overthrow the king and change the dynasty. She successfully made Qianti a laughingstock of the entire kingdom. and the general could then smoothly ascend to the throne. Huo remembered that in order to win her over, the general had promised that once he became king, he would make her his queen. But Huo was nothing more than a pawn in the general's hands. The thought of the general using her to hurt her beloved Shao Ti made Huo furious. Now that she was here, she would never let Shao Ti get hurt again. However, Huo's unusual behavior terrified her maid. Miss never used to drink alcohol, but now she's resorting to drowning her sorrows. The maid knelt down and kowtowed. It's all this servant's fault. This servant has failed to take good care of Mississippi. As someone from the 21st century, Huo couldn't accept such kneeling. She hurriedly helped the maid up, but this unusual behavior only made the maid more worried. Although Miss has a gentle personality, she never gets too close to the servants. Could she have gone mad? The frightened maid fainted on the spot. Or did she just faint? The next second, the window was burst open by a gust of wind. A man landed gracefully. Huo's eyes lit up. The newcomer was Huo's chief guard. His swordsmanship was the best in the world. His qinggong was unparalleled, and his speed was... Regrettably, he ultimately died a tragic death, pierced by thousands of arrows while protecting Huo. Thinking of Wei Yi's tragic end, Huo felt a pang of heartache. Wei Yi gazed at her with gentle eyes. "Master, why are you looking at me like that?" A man pierced by thousands of arrows for saving a girl. Yet here he was, completely unharmed, standing before her. It turned out that the man was just an NPC in the game. His purpose was to protect the player from harm. Yet now, Huo told him that although they were master and servant, if they encountered danger, he must prioritize his own safety. The man's thoughts drifted back to that fateful night. Starving and freezing, he encountered a wealthy young lady returning home. The girl made him an irresistible offer. If he was willing to become her guard, she would ensure he lived a life of wealth and comfort. For this promise, Wei Yi diligently practiced martial arts for over a decade, just to be qualified to protect the girl. Yet now, the girl was telling him to prioritize his own safety. This confused him. He had sworn to protect his master with his life. Huo felt a little helpless. This child is good in every way, except he seems a little not bright. She gently stroked Wei Yi's hair, her eyes filled with concern. Ever since she transmigrated into this game world, she had realized that these characters were not mere fictional beings. They were real people with flesh and blood. She had to do something to change their fate, to alter this dead end. Wei Yi, feeling Huo's touch, had a happy smile on his face. During this heartwarming moment, Qian Ti suddenly visited. Seeing their intimate behavior, he gave a strained smile. "You and your guard seem to be enjoying yourselves." His tone sounded like he was angry. She had to appease him quickly. Huo feigned surprise. "Your Majesty, why are you back?" However, these words didn't seem to have the desired effect. "It seems I've come at a bad time, disturbing your fun." Huo, however, lunged into Qian Ti's arms. "What are you talking about? You're welcome anytime, no matter when you come." Huo's enthusiasm brought a blush to Qian Ti's cheeks. He softly reminded her that there were others present. However, Huo not only didn't restrain herself, but embraced him even more boldly. At this moment, a voice interjected, slightly stiffly, "Greetings, Huo." Huo looked up in confusion. The newcomer was the ambitious general, the game's male lead who had offered up his own woman. Huo greeted him generously, "So it's General Jiang." In the original plot, the general wouldn't have visited Huo so openly. At this time, he should be cautiously avoiding her. Could it be because she hadn't made a move on Qian Ti last night as planned, making the general suspicious? But in Qian Ti's eyes, the way Huo looked at the general was too intense. This inevitably made him jealous. He pulled Huo into his arms with a cold expression. This action was unexpected by the general, causing him to involuntarily call out, "Huo." Huo's heart skipped a beat. Oh no, could the general have seen through her disguise? The player, whose beloved was tragically doomed due to unforeseen circumstances, unexpectedly transmigrated into a game. He became the infamous, disastrous consort Huo. To change the storyline, he followed his heart and seduced the emperor. However, he didn't anticipate that Qian Ti had already awakened his self-awareness. Because he arbitrarily changed the plot, the golden hairpin assassinates the emperor scene didn't happen. This prompted the ambitious, power-hungry general to start a rebellion. Disregarding Huo and Qian Ti's recent nuptials. He came to investigate, but Hua Shui's gaze towards the general was too fervent. This made Qian Ti jealous. He extended his arm and pulled Hua Shui into his embrace. General Jiang, weren't you saying you wanted two beautiful flowers like solitary peaches? If you want beautiful flowers, they're all right here with Shui'er. Which one catches your eye? I'll let my beloved consort part with it. He spoke softly, using the flower in his hand to gently lift Hua Shui's chin. The gesture was both gentle and provocative. Faced with Qian Ti's obvious provocation, the general's fists clenched, cracking his knuckles. After composing himself, he bowed and excused himself. He frankly stated that he was just a crude warrior, only knowing swords, spears, and leading troops in a battle. He likely wouldn't be able to care for such delicate flowers. With that, he made an excuse and hurriedly left. Witnessing the general's dejected departure, a surge of joy welled up within Qian Ti. He had won this round. However, the departing general wasn't heartbroken. He firmly believed Hua Shui wouldn't betray him. His current behavior was merely a facade to deceive Qian Ti. Hua Shui had sacrificed too much for him, even going so far as to actively seduce Qian Ti. He absolutely couldn't let down Hua Shui's deep affection. Watching the general's figure gradually disappear, Qian Ti ignored the clingy and affectionate Hua Shui in his arms. With a gentle push, he left him aside. Sure, go wash up and change. I still have memorials to review. I won't be coming to your room tonight. A classic case of using and discarding. However, Hua Shui didn't intend to let him leave so easily. He even boldly suggested they bathe together. His audacious words brought a blush to Qian Ti's cheeks. Despite this, he still covered his face and turned to leave. Even though he had experienced 108 reincarnations, he still had no defense against this woman. Hua Shui, however, felt that his words must have been too subtle for Shao Ti to grasp the meaning of bathing together. It seemed he would have to be more direct next time. Wei Yi volunteered, if Master enjoys bathing, I'm willing to accompany you. However, Hua Shui only considered him a brother that if I were to bathe with someone, it would be with Yun Yun, not you. Upon hearing this, Tan Yun couldn't help but imagine something indescribable. Overcome with excitement, his nose started bleeding and he fainted. Seeing this, Wei Yi retreated with Tan Yun. He couldn't bathe with his master, and neither could Tan Yun. Hua Shui suddenly remembered the upcoming plot points and wondered if the general would still come tonight. According to the original storyline, Hua Shui's secret meeting with the general was discovered by Consort Lin. He suffered a severe beating and endured considerable hardship. Wei Yi, in response, went on a killing spree, adding countless souls to his sword. However, Hua Shui not only escaped punishment, but also gained exclusive favor. Qian Ti dismissed his entire harem for him, earning himself the reputation of being blinded by lust. Having foreseen the plot's trajectory, he absolutely wouldn't allow such a thing to happen again. The woman had just been intimate with her new husband and then turned around to fall into the arms of her childhood sweetheart. This was because Hua Shui was a player who had accidentally transmigrated into the game. This was all to change the tragic fate of his beloved male supporting character. In the game world, Hua Shui and the general were childhood sweethearts. However, Emperor Qian Ti came between them. Hua Shui was forced to enter the palace as a consort, and it was the general himself who escorted him. The cold palace walls completely separated them, one heartbroken, the other resentful. Thus, a terrifying thought sprouted in the general's mind. Since his clan had been loyal for generations, dedicating their lives to military service, why couldn't he take that position? With his sweet words, the naive Hua Shui was persuaded by the general to become his informant within the palace. The general promised that once he successfully usurped the throne, he would marry Hua Shui and make him his empress. And now, following the original plot, he waited in the Liang Pavilion for the general's arrival. He originally intended to avoid Consort Lin's scheme directly, but the general's sudden visit today must mean he has suspicions. Hua Shui has to stabilize him first, but the biggest variable is Wei Yi. So he warned him once again if he's really caught. He didn't finish his sentence before Wei Yi interrupted. Whoever dares to capture Wei Yi, kill them all. This silly dog is really a worry. You must always remember your promise to prioritize your own safety. If I'm caught, you go find Qian Ti to save me, he said, reaching out and stroking Wei Yi's head. At this moment, footsteps approached. The general arrived as promised. Hua Shui put on a sweet smile. Brother Jiang, you're here. Shui-er. Today's acting was a bit too convincing. Brother Jiang is truly a little upset. Hua Shui immediately restrained his smile, lowered his head, and dabbed at non-existent tears, looking pitiful as he expressed his feelings to the general. Despite the urge to spit at him, the general sighed in relief. That's good. Otherwise, Brother Jiang would have thought you had feelings for Qian Ti. As he spoke, he slowly leaned down. Hua Shui's heart skipped a beat. This scumbag, does he want to kiss him? However, the general only took his hand, gazing at him affectionately. Having experienced the plot 108 times, Hua Shui wasn't the naive fool from the story. The general was nothing but a complete scumbag. He did have some affection for Hua Shui, but compared to his burning ambition, this affection seemed insignificant. The two were immersed in their own thoughts, completely unaware that someone was quietly approaching not far away. The newcomer was Consort Lin, responsible for capturing the sword in the original plot. The man intended to rebel and usurp the throne. However, his claim was illegitimate. His childhood sweetheart was forced into the palace to become a consort. He took this to heart, deciding to use the woman as a pawn. He deliberately created incidents, letting the woman influence the emperor. He tempted Qian Ti to act foolishly, thereby causing dissatisfaction among the court officials. Finally, he could achieve his goal. And at this moment, he disregarded Hua Shui and Qian Ti's wedding banquet, secretly scaling the wall to confront Hua Shui. Unexpectedly, their secret meeting was witnessed by Consort Lin, who happened to be passing by. As the footsteps drew closer, Hua Shui urged the general to leave first. Leave this matter to me. You mustn't stay out of concern for me. That would only be a burden. It's just a small matter. For Hua Shui, who had experienced countless dramas, this was a piece of cake. However, sensing the situation was wrong, the general had already quietly slipped away over the wall. He's truly a scumbag, leaving without a second thought, not caring whether Hua Shui could escape. By now, Consort Lin had arrived with her entourage. She began by sarcastically declaring Hua Shui's behavior a disgrace to the imperial harem. This consort will punish you severely today to uphold palace rules. She then ordered the guards to tie Hua Shui up. Wei stood by, coldly drawing his sword. But Hua Shui patted him reassuringly, signaling him not to worry. Perfect. I also have some things I want to make clear with Consort Lin. So, the group proceeded together to Consort Lin's chambers. However, in another hidden corner, Qian Ti, now self-aware, stood silently watching. Hua Shui had once been nearly beaten to death by Consort Lin for supposedly meeting with the general. He had only felt sorry for him then, believing he had been wrongly accused. Today, he had witnessed this infidelity with his own eyes. Since Hua Shui didn't care about him, he would wait until Consort Lin had flayed him alive before rescuing him. At this moment, in Jiayang Palace, Consort Lin gripped a whip, confronting Hua Shui. Just as she raised the whip to strike, Hua Shui suddenly laughed. Consort Lin was unsettled by his laughter. Hua Shui scoffed. If I were you, I definitely wouldn't so blatantly attack a newly favored consort. Do you want everyone to know how cruel you are? Nonsense. This consort caught you with a man. This is for the emperor. But Hua Shui pressed on. What if I told the emperor that it was you who was meeting with the general? Given my childhood connection with the general, he would certainly protect me. Then you'd have no way to defend yourself. Consort Lin was clearly flustered. You think the emperor would believe you? After all these years, the emperor has never favored any consort. Do you know why? This kind of palace secret is known to all the consorts. Good that you know. The emperor only has me in his heart. Of all the waters in the world, he only drinks from this poison water. He only drinks from you. Don't delude yourself. It's clearly because his majesty prefers men. Unexpectedly, Hua Shui suddenly slapped Consort Lin across the face. Consort Lin looked at her in disbelief. You dare hit me? Slandering the emperor is a capital offense. This slap is a light punishment. Hua Shui had intended to provoke Consort Lin into saying something outrageous like there being someone behind her, but it seemed she wasn't very bright. An innocent consort was being brutally tortured. Yet, her guard ran off to hold the emperor hostage. Only because Wei remembered his promise to Hua Shui. If she was ever in danger, he shouldn't resort to violence, but must find Qian Ti to save her. At this moment, Qian Ti, who was daydreaming, was puzzled. Why would this guard, who should be protecting Huo suddenly come looking for him? The next second, he scooped him up, throwing him over his shoulder in no time to explain. Get in the carriage. He hoisted Qian-Ti up and started running. Qian-Ti had only one thought. Shue'er's guard must be crazy. Should he consider replacing him? When had a eunuch ever been treated like this? Frightened, he yelled, "Guards!" He carried Qian-Ti to Chaoyang Palace. Before he could react, he was thrown to the ground. The palace guards, seeing the emperor's sudden arrival, were momentarily stunned. They hurriedly knelt and kowtowed. The embarrassed Qian-Ti quickly stood up. He gently waved his hand to the guards, signaling them to be quiet. He wanted to see how Huo was being tortured. But as he approached the window, he heard Huo shouting at Consort Lin, "Qian-Ti is not the Duan Xiu you speak of. The reason he doesn't favor the harem is because his heart and soul belong only to me. Huo, one life, one love, understand? Is she crazy? Does Huo intend to ask for a reward and have the harem disbanded?" The thought infuriated him. He immediately ordered the guards to continue. The disparity in strength between men and women left Huo defenseless. Consort Lin sneered, "All talk and a pretty face. Well, today I'll destroy that pretty face. Let's see how you'll bewitch the emperor then." The scalding hot tea in her hand was suddenly splashed towards Huo without warning. Huo's face paled. If her face was ruined, she wondered if Qian-Ti would still love her. Suddenly, a hand reached out and knocked the tea away. Qian-Ti appeared, shielding Huo. As expected of his beloved Qian-Ti, a heroic rescue, super handsome, Wei, a step too late, directed his frustration at the guards holding Huo. Huo only then noticed that it was Wei who had brought Qian-Ti, and Qian-Ti's hand was burned protecting her. He distressedly took Qian-Ti's hand. "Your Majesty, are you all right?" "It's all red." Qian-Ti pulled his hand back. Huo's expression didn't seem fake. She appeared genuinely concerned. Consort Lin, standing nearby, also rushed forward. "Your Majesty, are you all right?" Qian-Ti turned, his expression darkening. "You're getting bolder and bolder. How dare you abuse your power and resort to private torture?" The decisive emperor, however, only had eyes for Huo. However, rumors circulated among the concubines that the emperor actually preferred men. Huo was merely a beard to conceal his true preferences. Therefore, when Huo was caught in a clandestine meeting with a man outside the palace, Consort Lin remained unusually calm, unhurriedly attempting to use private torture on Huo. Meanwhile, Qian-Ti was eavesdropping outside the door. Seeing the woman he loved about to suffer, he immediately stepped forward. "How dare you?" He couldn't believe she would use private punishment on the woman he loved. Consort Lin tried to justify her actions, claiming she was merely enforcing palace rules. After all, Huo was caught meeting a man in secret. However, before she could finish, Qian-Ti's angry roar interrupted her. Consort Lin immediately fell to her knees, terrified, crying out that she was wrongly accused. Qian-Ti scoffed. Wrongly accused. In his past life, he had showered Huo with favor, even dismissing the harem for her, only to meet a tragic end. Wasn't he wrongly accused? Qian-Ti pondered. If he kept Consort Lin alive, would the situation with Huo change? He then left the decision to Huo, asking her how she wanted to deal with Consort Lin. According to the original plot, Consort Lin was demoted to the cold palace for harming Huo. This incident didn't cause much of a stir. Therefore, Huo thought that keeping Consort Lin around might not be a big deal now, and she might even become a useful pawn. Since Consort Lin is deeply loved by the Empress Dowager, she couldn't be punished severely. A day of wandering the palace would suffice. She proposed that Consort Lin wander the palace for a day, but with a sign in hand. This way, she would be punished, yet also lose face within the harem. After the matter was settled, Huo still felt distressed about Qian-Ti's burn. Qian-Ti started to feel sleepy. He was puzzled. Huo was always gentle and soft, but this time she managed to escape from Consort Lin unscathed. Regardless, as long as Huo was safe and sound, it was all that mattered. Otherwise, he would be heartbroken. Huo was well aware of this, so even for Qian-Ti's sake, she wouldn't let anything happen to herself. After all, she came into the game to save him. Qian-Ti recalled his past life, how Huo tried every means to escape from him. But now, Huo told him personally that she stayed in the royal city for him. A eunuch's voice echoed in the quiet palace. Minister Lu requests an audience. Qian-Ti gently waved his hand, signaling him to enter. Hua Shui rose to her feet. Since your majesty and Minister Lu have matters to discuss, I shall take my leave. Qian Ti suddenly reached out and held her back. You are my beloved consort, my heart, my treasure. Why leave? I trust you won't divulge secrets to others. Qian Ti's sudden affection was overwhelming for Hua Shui. Guided by the eunuch, Minister Lu slowly walked in. Noticing how close they were, he tactfully inquired whether he should withdraw. But Hua Shui suddenly stared at Minister Lu, her eyes shining. Truly, a man as handsome as Jade, a gentleman unparalleled in the world. Just moments ago, this woman was heartbroken over the emperor's burn, but the next second, upon seeing a handsome man, she was completely captivated. The man's name was Lu Wenxuan, the youngest minister of rites in the current dynasty. Talented, handsome, and intelligent, he was Qian Ti's indispensable right-hand man. Seeing this, Qian Ti thought, only I can look at you like that. He turned to Minister Lu, signaling him to continue his report. It turned out that the Prince of Lulan, who had arrived with the envoy, had suddenly disappeared. There was concern that the envoy might use this as an excuse to create an incident and deliberately provoke a conflict. He came to Qian Ti for instructions. This matter shouldn't be publicized. However, Hua Shui knew that in the game's plot, Lulan would use the prince's disappearance as a pretext to send troops and cause significant casualties. Now, only by guiding them to find the prince could Qian Ti's urgent problem be solved. She resolutely stepped forward, volunteering to take on the responsibility of finding the Lulan prince. Looking at Hua Shui's confident demeanor, Qian Ti recalled her earlier words that she came here for him. But he couldn't help but doubt whether her words could be trusted. Since she wanted to participate, he would let her have her way and see what tricks she could pull. However, Lu Wenxuan felt that Qian Ti's decision was too hasty. This matter concerned state affairs. How could it be treated so lightly? Qian Ti ignored him and turned to Hua Shui, advising, it's too dangerous for you to go alone. I'll have General Jiang bring troops to protect you. Hua Shui repeatedly shook her head and refused. Qian Ti is truly clueless about General Jiang's wolfish ambitions. This was practically giving him a chance to cuckold him. Lu Wenxuan couldn't stand it. He advised again, Your Majesty, you mustn't be misled by beauty. If this continues, I will remonstrate with my death. Minister Lu, you mustn't die. You have more important things to do. I want you to assist Consort Hua every step of the way. Remember, every step of the way. Since you're so eager to show off, I'll expose your true colors this time and catch you both in one fell swoop. Hua Shui put on an ingratiating smile and addressed Lu Wenxuan. Minister Lu, can I ask you something? Please don't keep banging your head, hanging yourself, stabbing your chest, and calling us foolish ruler and seductive consort. It's too much for my nerves. He was determined to urge the emperor to be a wise and virtuous ruler, sharing the emperor's worries. All right, since it's all for Qian Ti's good, I'll reluctantly agree. You can call me seductive consort. So, that night, Hua Shui, disguised as a man, appeared at the night market with 2 attendants. In the original plot, Lu Wenxuan found the Lulan prince in the black market and relayed the news to Qian Ti. After receiving the news, Qian Ti rushed to the black market, but was ambushed on the way, severely injured and left unconscious. General Jiang took advantage of this opportunity to consolidate his power. No, he had to stop Lu Wenxuan. Qian Ti absolutely couldn't appear in the black market. A dignified consort and Jingyu, a minister, drinking in a brothel, even acting chummy and calling each other brother. All just to search for the Lulan prince in the black market. And yet, at this moment, she just wanted to shake off Minister Lu. But seeing the king's favored consort and General Jingyu getting closer and closer, Lu Wenxuan's heart pounded. So he forcibly separated the two. The road is so wide. Why do the consort and the general need to be so close? If you have any plans, why not speak openly? I've long heard that the general and consort Hua had a previous engagement. We can't let old feelings rekindle. After all, the king specifically instructed me to stay by consort Hua's side at all times. Yet, this troublemaker is acting recklessly. This mission concerns diplomatic relations between 2 countries. How can we be so blatant? I see. have the consort and the general already come to a conclusion? Of course. Minister, just follow us with peace of mind. Unexpectedly, Hua Shui led them into a brothel. She even thoughtfully arranged a companion for Minister Liu. Liu Wenxuan was both embarrassed and annoyed that we're on official business. How can we come to such a place? And you, a dignified consort, what will happen if word gets out? Not to mention the king's reputation. Think about it, Minister. Brothels are places where people from all walks of life gather. It's the perfect place to gather intelligence. And I've heard that the Lulan people are fond of women. Maybe one of these girls has seen him. I see. My roundabout approach must have amused the consort. Minister Liu is straightforward and outspoken. Truly admirable. Here's a toast to you. Watching Minister Liu obediently raise his glass and drink it all down, Hua Shui smiled triumphantly. She knew that Liu Wenxuan in the game had a low tolerance for alcohol. He should be easy to get drunk. Who knew that after one drink, Liu Wenxuan would fall asleep on the spot? Wow, his tolerance isn't just low, it's practically non-existent. Meanwhile, the general had been secretly observing Hua Shui. Her words and actions were indeed very different from the past. She seemed to have become much smarter. Suddenly, a scout reported a blue-eyed, green-haired man has appeared in the black market. This perfectly matched Liu Wenxuan's description. It had to be the Lulan prince. We have to go now. Leaving Liu Wenxuan behind, the two hurried to the black market. The general secretly instructed his subordinates to lie in ambush. If the Lulan prince dies in our country, it will definitely trigger a war between the two nations. Qian Ti's precarious position would actually benefit him. No, we absolutely cannot let the Lulan prince leave the black market alive. At that moment, an auction was being held in the Qianbao pavilion in front of the black market. Another treasure was being auctioned on stage. In Wuji, the owner of Qianbao Pavilion, enthusiastically introduced the final round of the auction. As the curtains slowly rose, a man bound by iron chains gradually revealed his true face. This man was the Lulan prince, Lalanzi. His face was flushed, clearly drugged. His captivating appearance attracted the attention of the audience. At the same time, Hua Shui and the general quietly took their seats. The man, though naturally charming, was forcibly captured by Qianbao Pavilion to be auctioned off as an item. However, what the owner didn't know was that this man was actually the Lulan prince, Lalanzi. Hua Shui, having conquered this stage 108 times, knew that Lalanzi was the fuse that ignited the war between Qian and Lulan. In the game, the general killed Lalanzi and framed Qian Ti, successfully instigating war between the two countries. He then gained popular support through his merit in conquering Lulan, and Qian Ti lost a lot of support because of this. Now that Hua Shui had transmigrated into the game, she would absolutely not allow the general scheme to succeed. At this moment, on stage, Lalanzi, under the influence of the drugs, was practically twisting himself into a pretzel. In Wuji gleefully announced the start of the auction. He reminded everyone that those who bid falsely and couldn't afford the price would face the consequences. As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd began to bid, the price gradually climbing from the initial 200 taels of silver to 2,000. A wealthy woman even directly offered 3,000 taels. Seeing the opportune moment, Hua Shui raised her card and bid 10,000 taels. Such a high price deterred others. The general wondered where Hua Shui got the money. Hua Shui gave a knowing smile that I have my ways. She wasn't actually planning to pay. Did he think she was foolish enough to buy him and then give him to the general to kill? At this moment, In Wuji brought Lalanzi before the two of them. Hua Shui pretended to be indifferent, pulling the now drugged Lalanzi towards her. Lalanzi, under the influence of the drug, saw hearts around everything and started nuzzling against Hua Shui, living up to his reputation as the most flirtatious man in the Hua Fei Chronicles. Lalanzi almost made Hua Shui lose her composure. General Jingyu, watching their intimate interaction, felt his eye twitch. He abruptly pulled the delirious Lalanzi away. Since Hua Shui couldn't handle him, he might as well take over. Handing Lalanzi over to the general now would be like delivering him on a silver platter. Hua Shui couldn't allow that. As they tugged at Lalanzi, Hua Shui suddenly let go. Lalanzi lost his balance and fell towards the general. Then, with his eyes closed, he tried to kiss him. The general was instantly furious. He keeps calling for Xiao Shui and now dares to defile my face. Lalonzi must be tired of living. Hua Shui turned away guiltily. She hadn't expected Lalonzi to be so good at adding fuel to the fire. Would the general kill him here in a fit of rage? At that moment, Yin Wuji reminded Hua Shui that she had taken the man, so she needed to settle the bill. Hua Shui apologized awkwardly, lying that her brother handled the finances. My brother is so fond of gambling. I'll remind him to pay. Then, she leaned close to the general and whispered, Brother Jiang, Yin Wuji admires your reputation and wants your autograph. While he was distracted, she swiftly snatched his money pouch and hid it in her sleeve. Yin Wuji, seeing they had seemingly come to an agreement, gestured to the general to pay. The general's face darkened as he belatedly realized his money pouch was gone. Yin Wuji's expression changed. You don't mean to say you don't have any money, do you? Hua Shui seized the opportunity, grabbed Lalonzi's hair, and ran. Before the general could react, he was stopped. In desperation, he yelled for help. Hidden guards immediately appeared, shielding the general. Meanwhile, Anwei had already reported everything that happened at Qianbao Pavilion to Qianti. Qianti was furious. Hua Shui dared to visit a brothel behind his back and spent a fortune buying a man at Qianbao Pavilion. Not only that, but she also trashed the place because she couldn't pay. He wanted to see for himself what this audacious woman was up to. But then Qianti suddenly recalled his experiences in past lives. He had heard of Lalonzi's whereabouts and left the palace to investigate, only to be assassinated and gravely injured. From then on, the general began to consolidate his power. He couldn't go to the black market now, so he turned back and ordered the eunuch to tie him to the bed. The eunuch was shocked. When did His Majesty develop such peculiar habits? He had no idea. His Majesty's beloved consort was gallivanting around brothels with one of his ministers. She even spent a fortune buying a man at Qianbao Pavilion. And then, because she couldn't pay, she trashed the place. Meanwhile, Hua Shui was dragging the drug Lalonzi as she ran, but the man kept begging her to save him. Hua Shui was exasperated. She was diligently trying to save him, but Lalonzi's mind was filled with nothing but lustful thoughts. After a short distance, he stopped. Hua Shui, exhausted from dragging him, decided to rest. Suddenly, the man tackled her from behind, apologizing while his hands roamed her body. He even tried to justify his actions, claiming he was losing control. Hua Shui was furious. Since he was like this, she wouldn't hold back. She forcefully pushed Lalonzi away and slapped him. Isn't a man's chastity more important than life in your Lulan kingdom? Who are you trying to fool? And I don't like being on the bottom. Just then, she heard a faint groan and someone muttering to themselves. Hua Shui looked up and was astonished to find Qianti, who should have been in the palace, standing there. She was puzzled. She had stopped Lu Wenxuan from delivering the message. How could Qianti be in the black market? Qianti was equally bewildered. Remembering his tragic experiences in past lives, he knew he would be assassinated if he left the palace. So he returned to his room and had himself tied up. He was bound to the bed like a mummy. To be absolutely safe, he ordered the eunuch not to untie him, even if he personally gave the order. He decided to stay in bed and sleep. But what was going on now? In the blink of an eye, how did he end up back here? Were the ropes on his hands and the blanket wrapped around him? He suddenly realized that since he had appeared here, he was likely to be assassinated again. Just as he was pondering this, he heard a man's seductive moans from behind him. Turning around, he saw his beloved consort, Hua Shui, being held in the arms of a strange man. The man couldn't help but nuzzle against Hua Shui, murmuring, "Don't stop." This unexpected betrayal caught Qianti off guard. He coolly remarked, under the moonlight, a lone man and a lone woman. "What is my beloved consort doing?" Hua Shui immediately pushed Lalonzi away and anxiously tried to explain to Qianti that things weren't as they appeared. However, the man who had just been pushed away lunged forward again, his hands resuming their inappropriate wandering over Hua Shui. Unable to endure it any longer, Hua Shui flew into a rage and kicked Lalonzi 8 meters away. Lalonzi fainted with a thud, finally falling silent. Hua Shui retracted her leg, instantly transforming back into a demure lady. Ignoring Qianti's shocked expression, she continued her explanation. "This man lying here, unconscious with his backside in the air, is the Lulan Prince, the very person your Majesty has been searching for. But it seems we'll have to carry him back now. She then volunteered, "Since I knocked him out, why don't I carry him back?" But Qian-Ti rejected this suggestion. Men and women shouldn't have such close physical contact. But besides him, there was only Huoshui. If she didn't carry him, was Qian-Ti supposed to? Qian-Ti haughtily turned his head, stating that as the emperor, such a task was beneath him. Yet in the next moment he was carrying the still unconscious Lalanzi on his back, grumbling, "Ugh, but I'm only doing this for you, my beloved consort. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother with him at all." Huoshui showered him with flattery. The most important thing now is to get Lalanzi back to the palace. The two walked openly, without any attempt at concealment, completely unaware that on the rooftop of a small alley, someone had been secretly following them. To avoid being assassinated, Qian-Ti had ordered his servants to tie him to his bed. However, the plot's author seemingly teleported him directly to the black market. Since he couldn't avoid it, he decided to go with the flow. The most important thing now was to ensure Lalanzi's safe return to the palace. But what they didn't know was that Lulan assassins had already set their sights on them. The whoosh of an arrow caught Huoshui's attention. She frantically warned Qian-Ti to be careful. Before Qian-Ti could react, he was pushed aside by a force. A cry was heard as someone was still hit by the arrow. The arrow, originally aimed at Qian-Ti, unexpectedly hit Lalanzi in the buttocks. The arrow's trajectory revealed the assassin's position, but the assassin calmly drew their sword. Qian-Ti recalled his experiences in previous lives. He realized that in this lifetime's plot, although he had encountered Huoshui and Lalanzi, it seemed he hadn't changed his destined ending. What was meant to be was still coming. He still couldn't escape his fate of being assassinated. Suddenly, Huoshui shielded him with her body, telling him not to be afraid, that she would protect him. Touched, Qian-Ti released his hold on Lalanzi, tossing him aside. Then, he protectively placed Huoshui behind him. It was time for another Oscar-worthy performance. He wondered what this venomous woman, Huoshui, was plotting by pretending to risk her life to deceive him. Meanwhile, Huoshui was thinking that, based on the timing, General Jiang should be nearby. So, before anyone could react, she yelled at the top of her lungs, "General Jiang, protect His Majesty." Just as she predicted, as soon as her cry for help faded, hurried footsteps approached from the distance. General Jiang quickly appeared before them and knelt, apologizing for his negligence. The assassin on the wall hadn't expected reinforcements to arrive so quickly. Seeing their plan thwarted, the assassin sheathed their weapon, preparing to find another opportunity. However, General Jiang had now spotted the assassin's location. Seeing the assassin attempting to escape and lacking a suitable weapon at hand, he crouched down and forcefully pulled the arrow from Lalanzi's backside. Using his internal energy, he hurled the arrow towards the fleeing assassin. The arrow, imbued with deadly force, struck the assassin, who then tumbled from a wall. General Jiang, radiating a menacing aura, ordered his subordinates to pursue and capture the assassin alive. How dare someone attempt to assassinate the emperor right under his nose? Did they think he, the general, was a vegetarian? The subordinates obeyed, setting off to apprehend the assassin. But Qian-Ti and Huoshui felt a chill run down their spines. This was the first time Qian-Ti had witnessed General Jiang's prowess. At this rate, even if he were reborn several times, he might still struggle to escape death. Meanwhile, Lalanzi, who had been repeatedly stabbed, was completely free from the drug's effects. He felt that he could still be saved. With the assassin threat dealt with, the general turned his attention back to Qian-Ti, asking him if anyone else knew about his solo trip out of the palace. This sudden question made Qian-Ti extremely cautious. Could it be that the general wanted to deal with him personally? Endless fear made Qian-Ti tremble involuntarily. Huoshui reassuringly held Qian-Ti's hand, signaling him not to be afraid, saying she would handle everything. Then, she took a deep breath and suddenly lurched to one side. She dramatically cried out, "Oh, my heart hurts so much." Hearing this, both Qian-Ti and the general rushed to catch the seemingly collapsing Huoshui. Huoshui's acting suddenly became incredibly convincing. Tears streamed down her face as she gasped, "It hurts so much. I can't breathe. My mother died of a sudden heart attack. Will I?" The general still held some affection for Huashui. He nervously held her hand, comforting her and telling her not to speak such nonsense. Therefore, he didn't notice Huashui's other hand subtly guiding Qian Ti's hand towards Lalanzi. Crouching down a second later, Qian Ti also began to cry, urging Huashui not to think such things and saying he wouldn't allow anything to happen to her. Then, he scooped Huashui up in his arms. The most important thing now was to take her back to the palace for the imperial physician to treat her. At the same time, he reminded the general not to forget Lalanzi. The general reluctantly picked up Lalanzi, lamenting inwardly that the Lulan prince had still managed to take advantage of the situation. The summoned imperial physician was very panicked. Huashui was clearly as strong as an ox. How could he give a plausible explanation? Only by appeasing the lovesick king could he save his own life. To avoid being assassinated, Qian Ti ordered people to tie him to his bed. However, the main storyline's power directly transported him to the black market. Since he couldn't avoid it, he decided to go with the flow. The most important thing now was to ensure Lalanzi's safe return to the palace. But what they didn't know was that Lulan assassins had already set their sights on them. The whooshing sound of an arrow caught Huashui's attention. She frantically warned Qian Ti to be careful. Before Qian Ti could react, he was pushed to the side by a force. Someone still cried out as an arrow found its mark. The arrow, originally aimed at Qian Ti, unexpectedly hit Lalanzi in the buttocks. The arrow's trajectory revealed the assassin's position, but the assassin calmly drew his sword. Recalling his experiences in previous lives, Qian Ti realized that in this life's plot, although he had encountered Huashui and Lalanzi, it seemed that the destined ending hadn't changed. What was coming was still coming. He still couldn't escape his fate of being assassinated. Suddenly, Huashui shielded him with her body, telling him not to be afraid, that she would protect him. Moved, Qian Ti released his hold on Lalanzi, tossing him aside. Then, he shielded Huashui with his body. It was time for another Oscar-worthy performance. He wondered what this venomous woman, Huashui, was planning this time, pretending to be so selfless to deceive him. Meanwhile, Huashui was thinking that based on the timing, the general should be nearby. So, before anyone could react, she yelled at the top of her lungs, "General Jiang, protect his majesty." Just as Huashui predicted, as soon as her cry for help faded, hurried footsteps approached from not far away. The general quickly appeared before them and knelt to apologize. The assassin on the wall hadn't expected reinforcements to arrive so quickly. Seeing his hopes dashed, he could only withdraw his weapon and prepare to find another opportunity. However, the general had also spotted the assassin's location. Seeing the assassin attempting to escape and having no handy weapon, he crouched down, pulled the sword from Lalanzi's buttocks, and, using his internal energy, hurled it towards the assassin. The sword, whistling through the air, struck the fleeing assassin, who then tumbled off the wall. Covered in a murderous aura, the general ordered his attendants to continue the pursuit and capture the assassin alive. Someone had dared to attempt an assassination right under his nose. Did they think he, the general, was a vegetarian? The attendants obeyed and went to capture the assassin. But Qian Ti and Huashui felt a chill creep up from the soles of their feet. This was the first time Qian Ti had witnessed the general's true strength. At this rate, even if he were reborn several times, he might still struggle to escape death. Meanwhile, Lalanzi, who had been repeatedly stabbed, was completely free from the drug's effects. He felt that he could still be saved. With the assassin threat dealt with, the general turned his attention back to Qian Ti, asking him if anyone else knew about his solo trip out of the palace. This sudden question made Qian Ti extremely cautious. Could it be that the general wanted to deal with him personally? Endless fear made Qian Ti tremble involuntarily. Huashui reassuringly took Qian Ti's hand, signaling him not to be afraid and that he would handle everything. Then, taking a deep breath, he suddenly collapsed to one side. He dramatically cried out, "Oh dear, my heart, it hurts so much." Hearing this, both Qian Ti and the general rushed to catch the falling Huashui. Huashui's acting suddenly became superb. Tears streamed down his face as he gasped, "Ah, it hurts. I can't breathe. My mother died of a sudden heart attack. Will I?" The general, still harboring some affection for Huashui, anxiously held his hand and comforted him, telling him not to speak such nonsense. Therefore, he didn't notice Hua Shui's other hand pinching Qian Ti's thigh. A second later, Qian Ti also burst into tears, urging Hua Shui not to think such things and declaring that he wouldn't allow anything to happen to him. Then, he scooped Hua Shui up into his arms. The most important thing now was to get him back to the palace for the imperial physician's care. He also reminded the general not to forget Lalanzi. The general reluctantly picked up Lalanzi, inwardly lamenting that the Lulan prince had still managed to take advantage of the situation. The summoned imperial physician, however, was panicked. Consort Hua had clearly been as strong as an ox. How could he give a plausible explanation to the clearly love-struck king and still keep his own head? Hua Shui, feigning unconsciousness, successfully gained the general's sympathy. He also successfully averted Qian Ti's assassination. Only after hearing from the imperial physician that Hua Shui was out of danger did Qian Ti finally relax. This made him recall his numerous rebirths. Every time, he had either died or been injured. Why was this the only time he had escaped unharmed? The only variable was that Hua Shui and Lalanzi had also been present at the black market. This realization sparked an idea. If it weren't for Hua Shui, at that moment, the general looked at the still unconscious Hua Shui with heartache and guilt. If it weren't for him, Hua Shui wouldn't have had to endure such hardship. He longed to kill that wretched king immediately to vent his anger. However, Qian Ti entrusted the task of eliminating the assassin to the general. The general accepted the order and immediately left to handle it. Although the general still obeyed him, Qian Ti remained apprehensive. He considered the general too dangerous. It was fortunate that Hua Shui had been resourceful this time. Looking at the sleeping Hua Shui, sprawled ungracefully in his arms, he felt that this man was becoming increasingly unreadable. He was nearly frightened to death by Hua Shui's actions. The man was sleeping soundly. He reached out to wipe the drool from the corner of Hua Shui's mouth. But Hua Shui suddenly grabbed his wrist and mumbled, "Qian Ti, don't be afraid. I'll block the bad guys. I'll teach them a lesson for you." Hearing these words, a warmth surged in Qian Ti's heart. He didn't stop to consider why Hua Shui would help him like this. He only heard the man continue to murmur, "Because I like you the most." The sudden confession caused a slight flutter in Qian Ti's heart. He couldn't help but lean down and gently press a kiss on Hua Shui's forehead. Then, startled by his own actions, he pushed the man in his arms away. What was wrong with him? He had actually stolen a kiss from this man. Had he been drugged? After sobering up, Lu Wenxuan entered the palace to apologize, crying and begging the king for punishment. But at this moment, Qian Ti was lost in thought. Seeing that he received no response, Lu Wenxuan got up and ran toward the pillar, intending to apologize by taking his own life. Just then, Qian Ti suddenly snapped back to attention and stopped him. He asked Lu Wenxuan, "Explain how you were clearly tied to the bed with ropes, yet suddenly appeared elsewhere, and why, despite hating this man, do I always feel the urge to touch him?" Upon hearing this, Lu Wenxuan's nose suddenly gushed blood. The image that flashed in his mind was Hua Shui tying the king to the bed and teasing him. This was far too stimulating. Clearly, the king was suffering from lovesickness. As the saying goes, I live at the head of the Yangtze River, and you live at its tail. I think of you every day, but I cannot see you. Allow this humble official to obtain a kidney tonifying prescription from the imperial physician. Coupled with the position of noble consort, this will surely cure your ailment. What a ridiculous cure! Qian Ti immediately understood Lu Wenxuan's implication. He was being called impotent. The sweepers outside were startled by the sudden roar. Thus, the news of the king's impotence spread among the workers. But as the gossip spread, it morphed into the king being completely unable to perform sexually. If the king was impotent, what would become of the concubines in the harem? Meanwhile, at the general's mansion, the fleeing assassin ultimately didn't escape the general's pursuit. The general used his sword to flick open the assassin's collar, revealing a Lulan Kingdom totem on his body. It seems the Lulan Kingdom is quite ambitious. Using Song Jizi's entry into Chang'an as a cover, they actually plotted to assassinate His Majesty. If General Jiang reports this to His Majesty, within 3 days, a large army will invade and flatten that tiny Lulan Kingdom. Hua Shui falling into a coma caused General Jiang to feel a heavy sense of guilt. It was all because he still wasn't strong enough to protect him. When General Jiang captured the assassin who attempted to kill His Majesty and discovered the assassin was actually an envoy from the Lulan Kingdom, a plan formed in his mind. Since the Lulan Kingdom's goal was to kill Lalanzi and frame the Qian King, thereby escaping the Qian Kingdom's control, General Jiang decided to use the Lulan envoy to help him ascend the throne. He would naturally promise Lulan independence. The Lulan envoy, who had thought he was certainly going to die, scoffed. It seems the Qian Kingdom isn't an impenetrable fortress after all. He straightened his clothes and stood up, just as General Jiang mentioned Lalanzi's whereabouts. By this time, Lalanzi had already been brought into the palace for treatment. Now let's see what the envoy will do. General Jiang then led the Lulan envoy into the imperial palace. He lied, claiming to have run into the envoy outside the palace. He said that the envoy wished to see His Majesty, and so he took the liberty of bringing him into the palace. However, at this time, Qian Ti was listless and dull-eyed due to kidney deficiency and insomnia. The dark circles under his eyes were clearly visible. The Lulan envoy immediately knelt down and explained how Prince Lalanzi had gone missing in the Qian Kingdom. He pleaded with Qian Ti to assist in finding Prince Lalanzi. Qian Ti expressed his suspicion. This was all a bit too coincidental. It was just after they had found Prince Lalanzi that the accompanying envoy immediately came to ask for help in finding him. Qian Ti decided to observe for a while and see what the Lulan Kingdom was up to. Meanwhile, Lalanzi was currently fawning over Huoshui. Upon seeing the beautiful young man, he just wanted to pounce. Qian Ti brought the envoy to find Lalanzi. Just as they reached the door, they heard suggestive sounds coming from inside the room. "Sister, what is this horror cold thing? It feels so good." Qian Ti furiously kicked open the door. Wasn't this openly cuckolding him? However, the scene inside was not what he had imagined. Wei Yi was loyally protecting Huoshui, while Lalanzi was clinging to Wei Yi, rubbing against him incessantly. Seeing Qian Ti enter, Huoshui hurriedly explained that it was Lalanzi who was being inappropriate with Wei Yi. Seeing this, the Lulan envoy immediately rushed forward and hypocritically helped Lalanzi up. Then, twisting the facts, he accused Huoshui and his guard, claiming that they must have done something to cause Lalanzi to become so wanton and unrestrained. Seeing this, Qian Ti understood. Based on his 108 past lives, this was clearly the Lulan envoy attempting to slander him. Just as he was about to get angry, Huoshui suddenly covered his mouth, calming him down and telling him not to be impulsive and be the man behind your sister. Let your concubine speak for you. Then he patted Wei Yi's head, comforting him and assuring him that he would seek justice for him. He then picked up a basin of water from the table and splashed it directly onto the two from Lulan. The two were instantly drenched. Huoshui casually tossed the basin aside. The Qian Kingdom kindly rescued Prince Lalanzi, but the envoy is ungrateful and bites the hand that feeds him. Could it be that all of Queen Lulan's subordinates are so lacking in manners? The envoy was taken aback. It was said that the Qian Kingdom valued men above all else, but this favored concubine was quite bold. Seeing that Lalanzi had fully regained his senses, Huoshui coldly asked, "Your Highness, are you clear-headed now?" The envoy defended Lalanzi, saying, "I am but a humble envoy. I bear no resentment towards the esteemed concubine's reprimand." However, the esteemed concubine dared to splash His Highness with cold water. "I hope your Majesty will punish the concubine to appease the Lulan Kingdom. This charade has gone on long enough. If only he could have been killed with one blow, there wouldn't be so much trouble." But the now Qing Lalanzi suddenly pushed away Hong Sha's supporting hand, slowly stood up, and brushed aside the hair on his forehead. He stated that he owed his escape to the esteemed concubine's assistance. "I apologize for my earlier offense. Please forgive me." These words took all the blame upon himself. But Lalanzi's hairbrushing gesture made Huoshui seethe with anger. He truly is the most handsome man in the game. It's a pity he's a short-lived ghost. Qian Ti suddenly raised his hand to cover Huoshui's eyes. "Now that the prince is awake, do you remember what happened that day?" The man had only drunk the water handed to him by his attendant, and suddenly appeared at Qianbao Pavilion, being auctioned off as merchandise. Yet, the attendant ran to the imperial palace to see His Majesty, claiming that their prince had gone missing in the Qian Kingdom and demanding an explanation. However, Lalanzi had already been won by the veteran player, Huoshui. and was currently receiving treatment in the palace. Seeing their plan to frame the Qin kingdom exposed, and faced with Hua Xue's questioning, Hong Sha explained that he had also fainted after drinking the water. That was truly strange. Prince Lalanzi nearly died after fainting, while Hong Sha, his attendant, was completely unharmed. Such an explanation was obviously unconvincing. Seeing that he couldn't deceive them, Hong Sha hurriedly knelt down and pleaded guilty. Since the incident was caused by his mistake, he was willing to stay in the capital to investigate the truth. Qianti agreed to his request. However, it wasn't appropriate for the envoy to stay too long, so he was given only 3 days. He also ordered General Jiang to assist, ostensibly to protect the Lulan envoy, but in reality, to monitor the envoy's every move. However, what Qianti didn't know was that General Jiang had already reached an agreement with the Lulan envoy and planned to put Qianti to death. General Jiang led the 2 Lulan representatives to the embassy to settle in. He reached out, lifted Hua Xue's chin, and teased that he still really wanted to touch Imperial Consort Hua Xue in front of her. He suggested Hua Xue consider him. Qianti immediately stepped forward, pulled Lalanzi's hand away, and drew Hua Xue into his arms. He warned Lalanzi that seducing the imperial consort was punishable by death according to national law. Lalanzi suddenly looked a little guilty. He laughed awkwardly, withdrew his hand, and ran off. Hua Xue, who knew the plot like the back of her hand, knew that there was something wrong with the Lulan envoy. Therefore, she suggested that Qianti must send someone to follow him closely. Qianti was puzzled. He had been reborn 108 times and had already noticed something was wrong with the Lulan envoy. But how did Hua Xue know? Faced with Qianti's questioning, Hua Xue looked guilty. He couldn't tell Qianti that he knew the entire game plot and had played it 108 times. So he made up an excuse, saying that after Hong Sha fainted, strange red blood streaks appeared on his body. Based on a woman's sixth sense, she suspected that he was connected to the assassination attempt in the black market that night. I see, Qianti said. Then I must thank Hua Xue for helping me solve this problem. But then he changed the subject. Hua Xue, you used to be gentle and quiet, rarely speaking to me. But recently, you've been bold and unrestrained, like a different person. Hua Xue's face darkened. Had he finally been discovered after hiding for so long? He suddenly pulled Qianti's waist and confessed his love. Once, there was a sincere love in front of me, but I didn't cherish it. I only regretted it after losing it. That's why I've come to my senses and changed. I've decided to love and protect your majesty. Does your majesty like this version of me? This straightforward confession made Qianti blush. He hurriedly pushed Hua Xue away, making the excuse that he still had memorials to review, and quickly left. As for Hua Xue's contribution to saving Lalanzi, he rewarded her on the spot with 1,000 taels of silver and various treasures. But Hua Xue asked if the 1,000 taels of silver could be exchanged for something else, like spending the night with him. Hua Xue's blunt words startled Qianti. He pulled his sleeve away and refused, then left without looking back. Although Hua Xue had given a reasonable explanation for his change, he still ordered Anwei Bing to keep watch. He instructed them to report to him immediately if Hua Xue made any unusual moves. Just after leaving Shuiyuan residence, he ran into several concubines. The concubines, like hungry wolves, immediately surrounded him. However, Qianti ordered the guards to stop them. The concubines couldn't understand why the emperor only favored Hua Xue and not them. Qianti turned his head away in disgust that a bunch of Yongzhisufan and Wagaijiao. How dare you compare yourselves to imperial consort Hua? He then flicked his sleeves and turned to leave. This was definitely a way to draw all the hatred towards Hua Xue. The concubines were instantly furious and discussed finding a way to take Hua Xue down a peg. And this was precisely Qianti's plan. He wanted to see how Hua Xue would handle these ferocious beasts. The Qian kingdom's emperor only favored imperial consort Hua, yet he rejected her advances and publicly insulted the other concubines, claiming they were all cheap hussies and ugly, unworthy of comparison to imperial consort Hua. After this, rumors spread throughout the harem that Qianti had a hidden illness and was impotent. He only favored imperial consort Hua as a shield. But when Hua Xue learned of Qianti's impotence, he wasn't angry, but rather distressed. This was because Hua Xue was a player who had accidentally entered the game. Although he had completed the game 108 times, the plot details regarding Qianti's impotence were not explicitly explained. This wouldn't do. He had entered the game to change Qian Ti's tragic fate. He decided that Qian Ti's illness would be his responsibility to cure. 3 pounds each of ram, bull, deer, and tiger penis, plus a pound of snake gallbladder. 1 bowl will instantly restore Qian Ti's virility. However, before the medicine was ready, a group of concubines arrived to provoke her. Hua Shui, looking bewildered, was still fanning the stove with a fan. But the smell of the medicine made the visiting concubines cough repeatedly. Some started to taunt her, mocking the smell, saying it was like boiling pig feed. As they spoke, one of them kicked the medicine over. Before Hua Shui could react, Tan Yun, unable to contain her anger, stepped forward to argue with them. This medicine had been simmering for 3 hours and was the king's only hope. But now it was ruined by them. Not only did the 3 not apologize, they mocked Hua Shui's maid for being disrespectful. They even went so far as to slap Tan Yun. This was a clear sign of disrespect towards Hua Shui, like hitting a dog without regard for its owner. Hua Shui immediately ordered Wei Yi to tie up the 3 concubines. Although bound, they continued to glare at Hua Shui with resentment. It wasn't until Wei Yi asked Hua Shui how to deal with them, whether to have them drawn and quartered or summarily executed, that the 3 realized they had messed with the wrong person. They pleaded with Hua Shui for mercy and forgiveness. Hua Shui, however, patted Wei Yi's head and said that they were all civilized people of the new era and shouldn't resort to violence. Then, he instructed Tan Yun to pick some bright flowers. He wanted to put them in the hair of these concubines. Tan Yun obeyed and returned with a few vibrant flowers. Hua Shui personally placed these flowers in the hair of the terrified concubines. The 3 thought they had escaped disaster. But then Hua Shui suddenly warned them not to move, or their pretty faces might not remain intact. He then gestured to Wei to shoot his arrows, ordering him to accurately hit the flowers on the concubines' heads. Wei followed the order and shot 3 arrows in succession. Each arrow precisely pinned a flower to the pillar. The 3 concubines collapsed to the ground, thoroughly terrified. Hua Shui smiled and removed the gag from one of the concubines' mouths. He gently asked her if she wanted to apologize to Tan Yun. Having a concubine apologize to a maid was a blow to her pride. Hua Shui was surprised that, even after being threatened, she still refused to apologize. Since that was the case, he decided to take matters into his own hands. He took the bow and arrow from Wei Yi, wanting to see if the concubine was truly that stubborn. He aimed the arrow at the concubine and reminded her that this was his first time handling a bow and arrow, so he wasn't sure about his aim. The woman, who had been composed, immediately burst into tears and apologized profusely to Tan Yun. While a skilled archer was frightening, a novice with a bow was unpredictable. However, Hua Shui wasn't planning to let her off the hook. He deliberately announced to all the concubines present that he was a vengeful person, narrow-minded, and couldn't tolerate being wrong. These concubines had bullied his servant, and he couldn't swallow his anger without doing something. After speaking, he released the arrow. The arrow flew straight towards the concubine, causing her to faint from fright. The show of force was just right. The 2 conscious concubines knew they were no match for Hua Shui. They revealed that Consort Lin had ordered them to deliberately provoke Hua Shui. So was Consort Lin. It seemed she was still holding a grudge from the public humiliation and had come for revenge. Qian Ti's exclusive favor towards Hua Shui had sparked jealousy and discontent among the other concubines. Consort Lin had united the neglected concubines and plotted to frame Hua Shui. The pawn concubines were instigated to go to Shui Yuan residence to cause trouble, while she went to complain to Qian Ti, accusing Hua Shui of using corporal punishment in Shui Yuan residence. A little eunuch in the palace, unable to stand by, had come to inform her, hoping Qian Ti would intervene and uphold justice. Upon hearing this, Qian Ti excitedly slapped the table, secretly delighted to have finally found a flaw in Hua Shui. He wanted to see what Hua Shui was capable of. As they rushed towards Shui Yuan residence, they could hear the continuous pleas of a concubine from afar, and Hua Shui continued to shout, "Don't stop." One could only imagine the miserable treatment those manipulated concubines were enduring. But when Qian Ti pushed the door open, the scene before him was vastly different from what he had expected. Hua Shui and the other concubines were sitting around a table, happily playing mahjong. The 2 people outside were stunned. The concubines inside stood up to greet Qian Ti. They were smiling, their clothes were neat, and there were no signs of injury on them. Hua Shui even picked up a nearby money pouch and showed it off to Qian Ti, looking every bit the little miser. Qian Ti face-palmed in exasperation. His attitude towards Consort Lin took a sharp turn, questioning her. "This is the corporal punishment you spoke of?" Consort Lin was still unwilling to give up. She turned to the manipulated concubine and asked if she was seriously injured, urging her not to hide anything out of fear of Hua Shui's retaliation. Who would have thought that several concubines would flock to Hua Shui, attentively massaging his legs and bragging about the gifts he had given them? Qian Ti realized at this moment that he had been used by Consort Lin. He was about to question Lin, but Consort Lin started to cry first. She used the excuse of rejecting the servant's reports, claiming the constant screams from Shuiyuan residents were clearly misinformation. She declared she would severely punish the troublemaker. Hua Shui's methods were quite impressive. Not only had he bewitched the king, but he had also won over his people. However, Hua Shui, right in front of Qian Ti, brought up a concubine's flaws. Lying in front of the emperor was a crime of deceiving the monarch. He demanded the 3 concubines repeat to the king what they had just told him. Hua Shui's frivolous behavior made Qian Ti feel cuckolded. The concubines simultaneously pointed their fingers at Consort Lin, claiming she had instructed them to cause trouble for Hua Shui. They also thanked Hua Shui for being magnanimous and giving them gifts. Upon hearing this, Consort Lin immediately knelt and begged Qian Ti to uphold justice for her, claiming they were colluding to slander her. Qian Ti was shocked by Hua Shui's methods. He had truly underestimated Hua Shui before. In such a short time, he had managed to win over even Consort Lin's people to his side. Thinking this, he pulled his sleeve away from Consort Lin's grasp and instead drew Hua Shui into his arms. He discreetly led Hua Shui away from the concubines and softly inquired how he intended to deal with Consort Lin. Hua Shui thought for a moment. He had initially kept Consort Lin around so Qian Ti could see his gentle side. However, since she constantly caused trouble for him, it would be better to strip her of her consort title. Consort Lin felt a chill upon hearing this. Demoting her was as good as taking her life. Yet, Qian Ti was still praising Hua Shui's kindness and ordered Consort Lin to forfeit 3 months' allowance and be confined for 7 days. Consort Lin realized she had miscalculated. That fool, Lin was no match for this cunning little fox. Seeing the two acting intimately before him, Consort Lin trembled with rage. Leaving Shuiyuan residence, she went directly to the Empress Dowager's palace. Tearfully, she pleaded with the Empress Dowager to uphold justice for her, claiming Hua Shui was going too far. He had not only bribed everyone around her, but also instigated the king to demote her and confine her for 7 days. Consort Lin had assumed the Empress Dowager would help her deal with Hua Shui, but instead, she was asked what she wanted the Empress Dowager to do. Consort Lin suddenly changed her address, calling the Empress Dowager aunt and coquettishly tugging at her sleeve. However, the Empress Dowager pulled her sleeve back, causing Consort Lin to fall to the ground. The Empress Dowager sternly pointed out that if she couldn't even handle a mere concubine, how could she possibly rule the world as Empress in the future? If she didn't have any tricks up her sleeve, no one could help her. The Empress Dowager's words clearly indicated her stance. Consort Lin knew that even the Empress Dowager was unreliable. She quickly humbled herself and apologized. As for Hua Shui, who had caused her such great humiliation, she would definitely not let him off the hook. The highly nourishing tonic meticulously prepared by Hua Shui finally made its way to Qian Ti. However, Qian Ti was unaware of the rumors circulating in the harem about his virility. Therefore, when Hua Shui entered with the medicine, his first thought was that Hua Shui intended to poison him. Such a large, dark bowl, who knows what strange things might be inside. Moreover, Hua Shui remained standing by the table, seemingly intending to watch him drink the medicine. But Hua Shui was thinking that Qian Ti's furrowed brow must be due to his worries about his condition. He had to find a way to make him drink the medicine. So, he called out to Qian Ti in a soft, gentle voice, "Your Majesty." Then, he sat down on Qian Ti's lap. Since Qian Ti was unwilling to drink the medicine himself, he could only feed it to him mouth to mouth. As soon as the medicine touched Qian Ti's lips, Hua Shui eagerly asked how he felt. However, Qian Ti didn't hear a word Hua Shui said. The woman's sudden forwardness had already left him speechless. Then he heard the woman say with regret, "It seems the dosage is too weak. Next time, I'll increase it, and it will surely cure your Majesty's condition." condition. Qian finally snapped back to reality. When did he develop a condition? Why didn't he know about it? Hua Shui tilted his head in delighted surprise. S.O. Xiao Titi has already. Qian realized he was in an awkward situation. If he denied having a condition, he wouldn't have any other excuse to refuse Hua Shui today. If he admitted to it, he could avoid Hua Shui's advances, but he would have to endure the humiliation. So, he endured the humiliation and admitted to his condition. Hua Shui didn't seem disgusted by this. Instead, he held Qian and comforted him, promising to find other ways to treat him. With that, he hurriedly left, eager to search for other remedies. Qian, however, felt his dignity scatter like dust in the wind. Hua Shui had just reached the entrance of Shuiyuan residence when, suddenly, someone covered his mouth from behind. He was about to cry out for help, but the person forcefully pushed him into a corner. The person softly said, "Don't be afraid. It's me." Hua Shui recognized the general's voice. Then, the general took him to a secluded place. Although Hua Shui wasn't sure why the general had sought him out, he guessed it must be related to Qian. Sure enough, the general immediately asked for Hua Shui's help. He revealed that at the envoy's banquet in 5 days, Hong Sha would put poison from Lulan in a Qian wine cup. Hua Shui's task was to ensure Qian drank that poison wine. Hua Shui was shocked by the general's plan. He remembered this plot didn't exist in the original game. Could it be because he changed the secret of the Lulan letter that caused this deviation? Meanwhile, the general continued to elaborate on his future plans. Once Qian was dead, war would inevitably break out, and he could seize this opportunity to usurp the throne. Then, Hua Shui would become his officially wedded queen. But after hearing the general's grand promises, Hua Shui shook his head repeatedly. This was too risky. They should come up with a better plan. If Qian found out, they would all die. The general suddenly stepped forward and held Hua Shui's hand, assuring him that everything was arranged at the banquet. The guards and palace maids were all their people. Even if there was danger, he would protect Hua Shui. Hua Shui broke out in a cold sweat. For Qian sake, he had to stop the general's plan. But at this stage, he couldn't do it alone. A figure suddenly appeared in his mind. He calmed down and decided to agree to the general's request. The general plotted to poison Qian at the envoy's banquet and shared his plan with Hua Shui. To change Qian fate, Hua Shui would cooperate with the general while secretly protecting Qian. So Hua Shui left the palace to look for Lalanzi, only to learn he was currently at the Red Fragrance House. He initially thought the information was wrong, but as soon as he entered the brothel and stated his purpose, the madam immediately led him to Lalanzi's private room. Lalanzi was enjoying wine, surrounded by women. Hua Shui frowned and ordered Wei Yi to dismiss everyone else. When only the two of them were left, Hua Shui walked towards Lalanzi. Lalanzi, already drunk, mistook Hua Shui for one of the courtesans. Hua Shui snatched the wine cup from his hand and angrily questioned him. "How can you still indulge yourself here? Do you know Hong Sha is about to rebel?" Lalanzi squinted, continuing to reach for more wine, completely ignoring Hua Shui's words. Infuriated, Hua Shui grabbed Lalanzi by the collar. "If it weren't for Qian, I shouldn't have saved you. I should have let you be sold as a slave in the black market and be toyed to death." After saying this, he released Lalanzi's collar and turned to leave. Lalanzi's behavior was deeply disappointing. It seemed he shouldn't have come. Unexpectedly, Lalanzi let out a low chuckle, surprised that someone still had expectations of him. He also wanted to achieve something, but this was his fate. His mother, the queen, wanted him dead. What would he do? Lulan was a matriarchal society. So when Queen Lulan Hongyue summoned Lalanzi to the capital, he thought his mother had finally recognized his efforts and wanted to entrust him with responsibilities. However, Queen Lulan Hongyue threw the Qian kingdom's imperial edict at his feet and announced that, according to the agreement with the Qian kingdom, he would be sent to Qian as Lulan's representative. Hearing this, Lalanzi's heart sank. It sounded nice to be a representative of Lulan, but in reality, he was nothing more than a hostage, a pawn. He choked up as he continued. "When I witnessed my mother using me as a tool to provoke war between the two countries, can you understand my grief and indignation?" Hua Shui gently stroked Lalanzi's hair, trying to comfort him. "But when I saved you, you embarked on a brand new path. Now, this is a new you, a Lalanzi that belongs only to yourself. Hua Shui pleaded again, hoping they could cooperate to stop this conspiracy. It's also for Qian Ti. He's the reason I stayed here. And for Lalanzi, it was a chance to prevent Lolan's destruction and save his people. Lalanzi burst into tears, then laughed. He originally thought Hua Shui was just a frivolous, playful woman. He never expected him to be so devoted. Having won Lalanzi over, Hua Shui thought things should go much smoother from now on. Unexpectedly, Lalanzi suddenly grabbed Hua Shui's hand, pulling him into an embrace, and passionately confessed that if Hua Shui needed a familiar face, he was more than willing. However, Hua Shui punched him away. He was a married man. Couldn't he have some standards? How could Lalanzi be so eager to be a mistress? Meanwhile, in the palace, news of the general seeking out Hua Shui didn't escape Qian Ti's notice. At the same time, their plan was also anticipated by Qian Ti. Qian Ti's face darkened, sighing that this was already the 109th time Hua Shui had tried to kill them.